Coming up on 716, I want to welcome to microphone number 2, Supreme Court Justice Rhonda Wood. Welcome.
Good morning.
And on mic 4, Nicole Vaccarella. Did I get it right?
Yes, you did. Right. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Well, it's good to have you back.
It's wonderful to be back. You know that.
It's quite an honor to have a Supreme Court Justice from the Arkansas Supreme Court here today.
Oh, I don't know about that, but it's my pleasure.
Well, the last time I saw you was during the swearing-in ceremonies back in January, and I guess there's a lot of water on the bridge since that time, right?
Yes. I mean, we hit the ground running. I think we were sworn in, and then we started conferencing the next morning at 8:30. So we just started working and kept going.
Well, how do you get your feet wet in a new job? I mean, everybody has a breaking-in period, and I was even teasing Governor Hutchinson. He was inaugurated on the 13th, 1 week after you were sworn in. 2 days later, he's in D.C. with a couple of state reps. Session starts in February. This is the first break basically all the newly elected people have since being elected, really,
right,
or being sworn in.
Right.
So how do you make that adjustment?
You don't have a choice, so you're there and you do the best you can. I think it was actually somewhat easier to transition to the Supreme Court from the Court of Appeals, because I was already used to that type of work. It was a little bit different coming from the trial court to the Court of Appeals, switching from trial work to the appellate court. But now it was I just moved a wing. So the cases were obviously more complex, more in detailed. But other than that, it was, you do what you have to do, a lot of late nights.
Mm-hmm.
And
you're in town because of, I'll let you tell what's going on, because you had dinner with him last night.
Oh, well, for two reasons. Is one, the court does appeals on wheels. And so we were able to get, when we had the Amendment 80 passed to the Constitution, it gave us the opportunity to hear cases outside of Little Rock. So we are actually holding court at ASU Mountain Home this morning for a lot of the students in elementary and high schools in the area. But also Justice Scalia from the U.S. Supreme Court is in town and lecturing tonight. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of in conjunction with that as well.
Quite a thrill.
Yes.
I picked a lousy time to schedule a vacation, didn't I?
You did. And I happen to really like the man. Not everybody agrees with his politics, but I like him. But even if you didn't, he is an amazing speaker, and he's hilarious. He's actually very funny. People wouldn't expect that he'd be real serious, having been on the Supreme Court for 40-some years. But he's entertaining, and it's sold out, 1,600 seats for Mountain Home. To have that experience is just fabulous for the community.
Unbelievable. Yeah, it's quite an opportunity.
I think one of the things everybody needs to know, too, is the court hearing this morning is also open to the public. So even though they have school kids coming, I understand that there is still plenty of room for members of the public to come. Mm-hmm. So anybody that would like to come hear the case.
Yes, so you can finish listening to the show and then go over to ASU Mountain Home. But yes, oral arguments start at 9. They'll be over by 10. Mm-hmm. They just want everyone in the seat by 8:45. But so they could come, listen to our Supreme Court.
Interesting.
So
I don't know how far we can get into this. How does the Supreme Court work when you have an issue come up? What's step one? I mean, most generally, we go to court to pay a traffic ticket.
Right.
Generally
speaking, when someone is unhappy with a decision out of the trial court, they have 30 days to file an appeal. And if so, that will come to the Court of Appeals or Supreme Court. And that's a jurisdictional issue. But then once that happens, it actually takes sometimes 9 months to a year before the justices get the case, because the trial court has to prepare the record, get copies of all the pleadings, attorneys have to do briefs, so it takes a significant amount of time. We get our cases 4 weeks out. So 4 weeks before we would make the decision and vote on the case is when we get all the materials. And so every justice is different. Some of them don't like to look at it that far ahead. I choose to, but so it's almost as if you're working on 4 weeks of cases that every week you have cases in various different stages, and trying to keep track of what's sort of in the reading stage, what's in the research stage, what's sort of in the voting stage, and what's in the writing, the opinion stage. But we generally do work isolated in our own office with we have 2 staff attorneys in our offices. And then at conference day, we will go in, and one justice is assigned to present the case to the court. And we're very orderly, and we go by numbers, and we speak and we vote, and everybody, you can't interrupt, which is extremely hard for someone that is a lawyer. But everybody gets their turn to speak, and we go around the table, and there's no interrupting, and everybody gets to speak once, and then we go around and vote. And then from there, it's a sort of free discussion till we reach a decision. And it can be a 5-minute decision that we're just all on the same page immediately. It can be where it's 3 hours on a case. Or a lot of times we'll agree on the result, but not how you get there. And there's times where we can't reach a decision, and we all need to sort of go back and work some more on it and think some more and reread, and then come back and do it again the next day.
Then who decides who is going to write the opinions for the cases?
It's a random assignment, computer generated, and we know going in who's going to write it. If we know who's going to be assigned to write the case, we don't release that, and that person will write it if they're in the majority. If they're in the minority, then they know they write the dissent. And we refer to each other by numbers. Actually, we don't refer to each other by names.
Really?
And by seniority. So out of the 7, I'm 6th in seniority. And so if number 5 was assigned the case and does not get the majority vote, then I know I'm number 6 that I would write if I was the majority. So you sort of know going in where you fall.
Wow.
So yes, I mean, actually when we vote, we'll say, well, number 3, what do you think? It's very odd. I'm not used to that, but I'm adapting.
Have you had some extreme difficult cases before you already?
Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, we already had an issue about the death penalty.
Really?
And it was very hard because everybody has strong personal feelings, and it's not about how we feel or what we think of it. And the issue in front of us was sort of the mechanism that the legislature set up to administer death to someone that had received the sentence. And it was about a separation of powers issue between the legislative and executive branch. It was about the type of drug they chose to use. So it had nothing to do with how we personally feel. So you have to remove all the emotion from the table, how you feel about the issue, because there's people for or against at the table, and solely look at the separation of powers issue, look at the type of drug, and make those decisions. And it's hard. So
how do you pull the emotional?
It's really hard. And there's times that, we'll say to each other, this isn't about the death penalty. And so, and a lot of times we'll say in conference, we'll be looking at a statute in particular that legislature has passed. We'll go, I would have never voted for this in the legislature, and this is the worst statute I've ever seen, but, it's constitutional. So here we go. That's not our job. So it's hard, and we just have to check each other.
Sounds like you like to wring a few necks occasionally.
It's a check and balance, and sometimes we have to remind each other. That's okay.
Interesting. The significance of having the justice here out of D.C.
Oh, I think that's an amazing honor. Home. Yes, exactly. I think the college and the Bar Association, we are all extremely excited to hear him speak tonight and to have him in the area. I have to say that I've gotten some grief from some of my friends because I've been kind of giddy about it, and they're sort of looking at me like, why are you so excited? But I mean, he has been. I think right now he is the longest serving Supreme Court justice.
He is.
Mm-hmm, he is. He was appointed actually, I think in 1986, and has written many opinions, and his opinions, whether you agree with them or not, are usually very interesting. He's very well written, and he doesn't hold back, I guess is what I would say, in his opinion writing. And so he's very interesting, and I understand he's a very good speaker, so I'm excited to hear him tonight.
Did you say he's got a sense of humor?
Oh, he's hilarious. I was counting up, and I think this may be the 11th time that I've heard him speak. And he's Italian, and he has that sort of feisty Italian spirit, and he's really entertaining. And I think, too, the other thing I wanted to mention is he brought 2 retired federal judges with him and another federal judge that is on the bench. But the federal judges lectured 2 classes at ASU Mountain Home, 2 students there yesterday. And today, Scalia is teaching a constitutional law class for the students. So he is really, he's been extremely gracious. He's very excited about turkey hunting up here, but he's been gracious with his time and to go in and work with a class of 30 students one-on-one and prepare the lecture. Besides what he's doing this evening, he has just been gracious to this community. And those students, I just hope they realize.
They'll understand it 25 years from
realize
now.
what, this is, the experience is just unprecedented.
We got to take a news break. Stick around. We'll be right back. Well, once I hit the right button. There we go. Be right back. 7:34, back with Justice Wood and Nicole Vaccarella. Did I get it right again? Yes, 2 times in a row. All right. I guess the main question I have to ask is, a lot of times in the press we hear that in the courts, judges are changing the law or reassigning the law. How do you feel about some of the press releases that are coming out? Instead of saying they're not interpreting the law, but they're making, like the EPA, for instance, and I don't know that you can talk about that.
Well, our court doesn't do that, Dale. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
There's a criticism that the courts, I think, are result-oriented. And so there's a criticism, regardless of the level of judge you're at, whether at a trial or the appellate, that they know the result they want to get to. And so then they sort of manipulate and interpret the law to get to where they want to get. And that's something that, as a judge, we just have to be so careful that we don't do that. And actually, you were at my swearing in, but I think I quoted Scalia, and Scalia said, if you like all the results of your cases, then you're a bad judge. A good judge will not like their results majority of the time. Because if you like all the results, that's a sign that you're manipulating and interpreting it the way to get to the result you want. And so it's okay to not like the result, because that means you're probably following the law. And so kind of an internal check is sometimes you'll go to make a decision. I know in the trial court I'd go to make a decision, and I'd make the decision, and I'd go and try to find the case law and research to support it, and I couldn't find it. I thought, and I was like, where's the cases? And then I'd go, well, it's not the cases that's the problem. It was my result. And so it was funny that you change the result, and suddenly there was the law. And so you sort of have to check yourself that you're not, trying to get to the result you want. It's a hard thing to do, to pull yourself out of it.
Well, and I've even heard that some judges, I'm looking at the Second Amendment right now, quote, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, comma, shall not be infringed, into quotes. They're saying that, some judges are saying that the right of the militia to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Right.
I say that, I see it as the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Well, and of course, I can't say specifically, but if you think about it, you just have to, it goes back to if you were in maybe 5th or 6th grade and the English teacher had you break your sentences apart and sort of deconstruct them. And so that's what we have to do. And so you have to take it and do that. And sometimes I think even the legislature may not realize where they put a comma changes the outcome.
It does.
Completely. And so we sit there and we really dissect. All that time I did that growing up, I thought, this is ridiculous. Why would I ever use it? But we do that routinely when we're looking, especially at a statute, is we have to break it apart, and that's the only way to get there.
I think that's one of the big debates with the Supreme Court and with Justice Scalia specifically, is he has strong opinions about interpreting the Constitution as it was written or as it was intended when it was written versus how we might think of those concepts and words now. Right. So that's definitely a big debate.
Well, and he's written book after book on that, on how you read it. He has a book called Reading the Law that's this thick, that's all about just how you read a statute and get the right interpretation. And it's about 600 pages. So it's not easy.
Can we get too complicated for our own good, though? Okay, this is going to sound silly, but let's say that I wanted a law to change stop signs in Arkansas to be purple and orange,
Right.
like LSU colors,
Shame on you.
Oh, boy, that'd go over well, wouldn't it? So I'd write a law to change stop signs to purple and yellow. And it seems like we've got stuff going way off in left field on some of these laws that you can't even understand. Why do we have to make things so complicated? It's like the healthcare law, 2,700 pages.
I would agree with you. Typically, the longer something is, the more susceptible it is to being misinterpreted and misapplied. Usually, if you can be concise and clear, so your proposal would make perfect sense, that sentence. But what we'll see is that all stop signs in cities over 10,000 and, that are within 5 blocks of a school, and it'll be so lengthy,
and on and on and on.
And then we're trying to figure out, well, did they mean that you had to be the town plus 5 blocks, or did it mean if you were in a town over 5,000, but you could be a town of less than 5,000, but have it within 5 blocks of a school? And so that's where it gets really complicated.
That's where your Excedrin headache number 3 comes from,
Right.
trying to figure this out, right?
So you really want legislators that not only have good judgment and make good decisions, but you want them also that have some English skills and grammar and can make something concise and well stated, so that when it comes to the judges, it's a lot easier to interpret and we don't go the wrong way.
If the Affordable Health Care Act went to the Supreme Court in D.C., how could they properly take a look at all of that, being it's so long?
I don't know how they can possibly read all the legislation that is in front of them and they're having to vote on. I
think they have to look at it. I mean, I'm the general counsel for the hospital here, so this is near and dear to my heart, because you're right. I mean, when they changed the healthcare law, it did change. Healthcare law has changed more probably in the last 5 years than it did in the 25 before that, and it's just impossible to keep up with the rate of change for any one person or organization, and it's definitely a burden on your local hospitals and physicians. And I think the Supreme Court is just having to look at it one piece at a time, which is definitely more difficult than looking at the whole picture.
Well, the court's worst, we can only address what's brought to us.
Right.
So we're, what she's saying is they'll challenge one section of it. And so you deal with that one section, and then...
But if you've got a subline or a subheading that refers, let's say you're reading page 17, refers back to page 24, to go back to page 4, I don't see how you can properly identify the entire intent without reading it from page 1 to the end.
It's exceedingly difficult.
Right. And then, I mean, whether you like the healthcare reform law or not, there are some very good things, I think good programs that look to trying to actually improve health versus trying to just change healthcare. But it's so complicated and so burdensome to wade through that it's just very difficult. So I feel sorry for the courts. It's a job that's getting harder and harder every year, and the amount of the workload because of the proliferation of the laws, I think.
How many hours does it take to prep? Say that you've got a law that's 25 pages, you've got to go through that type of legislation.
For example, we had the legislature reformed and changed how a petition gets put on the ballot to do a constitutional amendment. That got changed, and that legislation was incredibly lengthy, and just probably 20 plus pages of the bill, and that just took, weeks and weeks, hours and hours for us, and it was challenged 5 sections out of the whole bill, but we had to read the whole bill to try to figure out how it fit. There's weeks that you're working till 2 a.m. just trying to get through it. And then we have good weeks like we're here and we're up in Mountain Home, getting to visit with friends.
Yeah, there you go.
So it's
Except
all
we're
good.
not going to Western Scissor for lunch today,
are we? No. That would be typical, but no, not today.
If you had a genie in a bottle and popped out for 3 wishes, what would you wish for your to help your job? Both you and Nicole. That'd be we'll go 6 ways.
Boy, Dale, that's a hard question. So 3
Nicole, what do you think?
Wow, yeah.
What would make your job easier? You want to be fair and honest, but yet you've got to follow the law. If you had a genie in your bottle and get 3 wishes, what would you do? For
healthcare, there's no doubt it would be the simplification of the rules for Medicare and Medicaid and other governmental payers that are taking care of patients. Great programs that do really good things, but it is extremely complicated. And if we could make that system simpler, where we don't spend as much money maybe on the side where we're administering healthcare as opposed to actually doing healthcare treatment, I know that every healthcare provider in the country would be happier.
I guess partly, the public doesn't want judges to prejudge cases. And I wish in some way also the public in general didn't prejudge a case and sort of let it work itself out, and to understand, I guess, more understanding of our role and the difficulties we're in to do that. And then with the justice system, I mean, just more money. I mean, I hate to say it, that so many of the decisions we're making, especially in the criminal justice system, we don't have the funds. We don't have the funds to try to do any rehabilitation, do any programming, to change youth, from an early age that are going down the wrong path.
I was asking the governor one time, he was on with Sheriff Montgomery, has there been any report come back from any psychiatrists to talk about repeat offenders? What's in the criminal mind? What makes a repeat offender?
No, I mean, there really isn't. There's a belief that there's a genetic component. Actually, there's been genes that have been isolated to people that have sort of violent tendencies or certain things like that, they've isolated a gene. They call it the murder gene, believe it or not. And there's a lot of studies on that. But no, I think that we have background factors that if you have those factors in your background, you are more likely to reoffend. And so the court system can sort of go after, can we control or make an impact on any of those factors to lessen the likelihood?
Interesting. It's 7:45, and I know you've got a lot on your plate today. We're going to let you get going here. We're going to go ahead and take the Sean Handy break. We'll be right back. Our thanks to Justice Rhonda Wood and Nicole Vaccarella for being here.
Thank
you.
Right
Appreciate it.
Anyway, I want to welcome to mic number 2 now, Beth Ann Rankin. What a pleasure.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on the air today. I appreciate it.
Spur of the moment, but when I heard Beth Ann's going to be talking, okay, come on in. We'll
of the moment. Sometimes that's the best way to do things.
You betcha. Going to talk about AR 529. And
yes.
I'm going to let you have the mic. Tell us about this.
Listen, I appreciate it. The Gift Arkansas 529 College Investing Plan is a state sponsored initiative to encourage families to start early on their financial path to saving for college. Of course, this is for children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews. Doesn't even have to be a blood relative. It could be a godchild or someone you know at your church that you've got the opportunity. Maybe you could open a 529 and help them get on a solid financial path toward paying for future learning. I do want to say, Dale, just right off the bat, that even though it's called the College Investing Plan, and it absolutely is, it covers 2-year, 4-year, and graduate school, but it is even more encompassing than that. This also covers trade and vocational school. So
Really?
I think that's very important distinction to know about. So the Arkansas 529 College Investing Plan, it's for 2-year, 4-year, and graduate school, but also for trade and vocational. So we just encourage folks to check it out.
During the campaign last year, I've talked with a lot of candidates. And in Arkansas, we seem to have fallen behind on vocational technical. And I think even Governor Hutchinson has recognized that. We're wanting to bring that out to the forefront a little bit more. It's good to have a 2 or 4-year college degree and then advance into graduate school like that. But like me, I'm a blue-collar guy. I grew up working on cars, rebuilding front ends, engines, things of that nature. And some of my boys are doing the same thing. One's a carpenter in Tennessee, one's pumping oil in North Dakota.
Exactly.
And they want to learn the
and
welding trade.
We need those professions.
Sure.
We need those professions. I'm the daughter of a university professor, but he's an economics professor. So one of the things he always taught was, our society, our capitalistic society is based on a broad range economy. We've got to have skill sets in all of these sectors to succeed as a country. So that's why I love the fact that Arkansas 529, it respects that. It says, hey, if you want to go to a 2-year or 4-year or even beyond and enter graduate school, that's fantastic. You can use your Arkansas 529 529 fund for that. Remember, it's your money. This is not state money. This is your money that you're investing in an account. We make sure people know they realize it is an investment account. You've got to be comfortable with that to open a 529, much like a retirement account. But in addition to that, it does reach out to workforce training, specifically with vocational and trade school, because our economy is based on those trades as well, deeply based on it. We've got to have those skill sets to move forward as a country. So I love that 529 recognizes that.
You know, and we just had Justice Rhonda Wood here, and of course, being an attorney and a judge, and take a doctor or somebody in a profession like that, perhaps they want a nice home. Somebody's got to build
Somebody's
it.
got to build
Somebody's got
it.
to cut the 2x4s, the 2x6s, and then lay
That's
the
right.
tile and stuff like that.
They've got to wire it without it burning
Wire it,
down.
yeah.
They've got to plumb it. They've got to, you've got to have those skill sets. So I love that the Arkansas 529 is cognizant of that. And when it was written, believe it or not, this is not a new program. It's been around for over a decade in Arkansas.
Really?
Congress kicked it off in 1986. What we've discovered is not enough people know about it. So we're we're on a huge outreach across the state. I'm visiting all 75 counties. Treasurer Dennis Milligan wanted to do a huge outreach to be sure that citizens in all 75 counties knew about the Gift Arkansas 529. And by the way, they can go to arkansas529.org. That's arkansas529.org to find out more and to enter to win an Arkansas 529 college savings account in the amount of $529.
Now, is this an interest-bearing account? Is it,
It is
a
truly-
tax shelter of any type?
It is truly tied to the market. Vanguard manages the money. As I mentioned, I keep comparing it to retirement accounts because you do have the control of what style of investing you're interested in. So in other words, you don't go in with the 529. You won't go in and cherry pick your stocks and bonds, but you will tell Vanguard what style of investing. Are you a conservative investor, moderate, aggressive? Would you like an age-based style of investing? Additionally, up to twice a year, you get to change your mind about what style of investor you are. Maybe you were really brave at the beginning of the year and you're not really feeling good about the stock market. You want to tighten it up. Up to 2 times a year, you can change your style of investing, which is important to know. So they did write into the legislation some flexibility for the account owners who own this account. You asked about the tax advantages. Yesterday was tax day, so I want to quickly mention that, yes, the growth on these accounts is tax-free. The growth. So what you contribute is after-tax dollars.
Okay.
But the growth on the account is tax-free, both state and federal, when you make a qualified withdrawal, which is for higher learning. And so want to be sure and get that in there. Additionally, your contribution into a 529 is state income tax deductible. So you've got a couple of tax advantages. They did that on purpose to incentivize saving.
Interesting. Wow. We need to have you come back sometime.
Thank
Once you
you.
get to all 75 counties.
That's right.
And Treasurer
I'll come
Milligan
back.
Says, go back to Mount Nome.
I hope he does. Absolutely. It's so stunningly beautiful up
'Cause
here.
there's
I
so
love
much
visiting
more
Mountain
information.
Home.
And like I got the phone call yesterday afternoon. Yeah, I'll stop by, And,
There is a lot to a 529. You literally could talk for a while on this because one thing leads to more questions. And that's why we do love to engage the public and get people asking questions. But on our website at arkansas529.org, there is a frequently asked questions bubble.
Good point.
Click on that. It might answer some of the questions you've got right off the top of your head. While you're there, register to win the Arkansas 529 account from Baxter County and any listening areas around in the respective areas as well.
A lot of information. We're going to have you back.
Thank you, Dale.
Our thanks to Beth
appreciate
Ann Rankin
it.
for stopping by, and Supreme Court Justice Rhonda Wood and Nicole Vaccarella. Time for the Rush Morning Update, followed by Gillen Beck. See you tomorrow.